If you want to be an artist, or if you are and you want to level up, one of the biggest pieces of advice that I can give you is to find yourself an artist community. It's just easier to do things when you have other people around you that know about those same things. Think about the number of professions that would train and never meet someone else doing their same thing. It's pretty much none. But because of a bunch of things that are unique to art specifically, I feel like a lot of us do get to the point where we've built these skills and we want these careers without really having an artist community at all. So in this video, I want to kind of talk about how I got my artist community, the things that it's gotten me over the years, and kind of steps that you can take to start finding your own. So rewinding to 10 years ago when I first moved to LA and started doing stand-up and comedy, at that time I didn't realize how unique that artist community really was in terms of building community. Because if you think about stand-up, you literally can't do it without other people. Like, someone has to be on stage talking, and if they're talking to no one, can you really say they're doing stand-up? Like, not really, you know? And that's very unique to this art form, to have an audience literally be required to even do the thing. Like, if no one's there to listen, no one can even laugh at the jokes. And when you first start doing comedy, you aren't booked on shows, so you go to open mics, and then the other comedians that are going to perform later on that evening double as the audience. So these sit in the crowd and watch you, and then you stay in the crowd and watch them. And so by default, you just start building a community. I mean, you're there for hours every night, and like, there's also people going out and taking smoke breaks and getting there early and late and in the cafe that it's in, and also people just not wanting to listen to bad open mic comedy, so you leave to just have a respite for yourself. And as you're standing there, you just start to talk to people, you start to organically form bonds. People are also going to those open mics and they're seeing you perform, and they might book you on shows. So it's just steeped with community. Every single bullet point, every single thing that you're doing as an early stand-up is just building your artist community. And that's generally true for other forms of comedy as well. I eventually got into improv and then sketch. Both of those art forms, you need an audience as well. I mean, you're putting on shows for people. And in a lot of cases, it's also literally tiered out. You know, there are a lot of classes that are less common with stand-up, but still done. Super ubiquitous within improv. Pretty much everyone does classes at the beginning. And all of this also really helps you know where you are. And so I guess that's my first kind of note about the communities, is that it's really nice to have a larger community, because when you do, you have all the steps visible for you. You know, when I just started doing stand-up and comedy, I would see all these people who had like been on TV and had agents, and they were coming to these open mics as kind of like the senior people. And so you get a taste of like, here's what it's like to be a touring comedian, because you're literally talking to one, because you're all meeting at the same kind of watering hole. Or even people who have been doing it just a little bit longer than you, and you're like, here's where I could be in 3, 6, 9 months. And having that structure is just so helpful, because like, I wouldn't have known what a stand-up was doing at 9 months into doing stand-up unless I started doing stand-up and then happened to meet all of these people that had been doing it for these different time lengths. And so to contrast that against another skill, like maybe visual art, where you're learning self-taught at home through YouTube classes, you have no way of knowing what does a painter look like that's been doing it for 9 months. So your community is really helpful in just literally teaching you, like, what does it even look like to go through the steps of building this skill? It's also really helpful when you're in the middle and you're trying to figure out, like, okay, how far have I gotten? You know, generally, how comfortable am I on stage? Like, what's happening? It's good to have a litmus test against you and others. Now, there's obviously a lot of toxic parts of that as well, because not everyone progresses at the same rate. And the reasons that people get different career accomplishments aren't always merit-based. So it's not, you know, a perfect system, but it's overall extremely helpful to have these kind of guideposts. And it's a pro and a con, but you're also kind of judging your own skill level. Especially for comedy, for me, I felt really insecure about even attempting to do it, because by standing on a stage, you're declaring to everyone, like, I think I'm funny. And it's before you've done anything to like prove that you're funny. So for me, it was really helpful to like be able to look at these peers and be like, okay, I'm getting these more shows, or I'm getting this, or I'm not getting these things. And you can kind of analyze like why, and you kind of figure out like, how good am I for a beginner or an intermediate person? Again, lots of bad things within that system too. You can definitely feel pressured to like do certain things just because you know people are going to see you do them. Like showing up to the right amount of open mics a week is a really big thing in the stand-up community. And if you don't do that, people kind of discredit you, I think very unfairly. So pro and con, but I did find that very useful to have these peers that you can compare yourself to. And overall, I think the most positive thing that it gives you is just, community. Having communities and groups of people keeps all of us invested in what we're doing, and it gives you resources to help get over the problems that you're encountering. And if you're really thinking about like pursuing an artist life, like this is my life, this is my lifestyle, it's just crucial because it's so hard. It's so hard to do this for a bunch of reasons. It like doesn't pay like other careers. So they're not going to get these things of like, well, like I'm getting my rent each month. So like I'm at least decent at this. You're just going to be doing it for so long, just on your own, grinding and grinding and grinding, that you should just be kind to yourself and really give yourself every advantage that you can get. And having a community is just one of those. First of all, they keep you motivated, which is scary because it can be that pressure, but it's also like so much motivation. And not just in terms of like, I see someone doing it, but like, I want to do it, but people directly complimenting you and telling you like, you're good. And it feels really different when an artist that's doing the same thing as you gives you a compliment, especially if they're like senior and they're really seeing you as like an early beginner. Like those mean everything. And those little moments of community are going to keep you in it when things get rough. Because if you're deciding like, I'm going to have a life as an artist, it's going to be rough, okay? It's going to be hard. It's going to have challenges. And there's going to be like 1 million times when you want to quit or you're really frustrated or you think you should be getting more faster and you're like really mad. You're going to go through so many majillion of difficult times that you need to have things that are just counteracting that. And I've talked a little bit about kind of like having different levels of art and you can see people ahead and behind you. But what's also really, really useful and probably like your most core group of people is your little micro community that is people that are really at your level. I don't know how it is in a ton of other art forms, but especially in LA, it really works almost like the same as like high school or college graduation, where there are these classes of people that come in that kind of start at the general same time and they group together. In comedy, that might be literally your improv team or your sketch team or the people that you're doing all of these stand-up shows with. They're not just your peers, but some of them are going to become your best friends ever, because out of all the people deciding to do art, these are the people that are doing it in the same time and place as you, that have the same kind of personality as you. They're really, really your peers, and they're just a crucial group of people to get to know. Like if you're like many years down an artist pathway and you can't name peers that are at your same level, that are your friends, like you're losing out from what those connections would give you. And I strongly implore you to start to try to find them. And as you get farther down this pathway, you're just going to find that those friends are the only ones that really have enough information to truly like get what you're going through. Like if I tell a non-LA friend, like, yeah, I've been in LA for 10 years. I've had a bunch of opportunities, been close to making it a bunch of times, but I don't make my rent off of comedy. I'm not at that point yet. Like if I say that, they'll be like, oh, okay. Yeah, like that sounds really hard. Like, do you think like next month you'll be getting paid for it? Or like, are you sure? Like you're going to keep going? Really? Okay, cool. I mean, yeah, well, that sounds like your choice then. If you're sure. Like it's very defeating and upsetting to have that experience. Versus if I tell my LA friends like, yeah, I've been here for 10 years, not paying rent, enjoying the artist process, they're just like, yeah, who is, right? Blah, 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 blah. And they instantly get it because they understand what the whole lifestyle is. And this is also just pure networking, right? I mean, like these same people, especially the people that are at your stage or a little bit ahead of you, are the ones that are going to get you higher. You can kind of imagine it as a hermit crab of like when one hermit crab graduates and goes to the bigger shell, like maybe they'll have like some gigs they'll throw you that they no longer need. And then that's how you can get your first gig. And just like parties and general socializing. You know, I've been to so many comedian parties and they've been, for the most part, really fun and exciting, good places that I'm glad I went to. And it's just really fun to actually get to see in person your community. And, you know, I could make a long video about all the problems in the comedian community. I am not saying it's perfect, but I really took all of the pros and all of this for granted. I just kind of thought like, well, yeah, like I've been doing it, so I know people doing it. And then when I was talking to my friends that are in different artist communities, I was like, wow, this is so different. And honestly, so much worse for like all of you guys. And that's when I realized that all of the shows and the classes that I've been doing had built this community along the way that I hadn't even really been thinking actively about. And then I realized that comedy is so unique just by the nature of the art form that there are probably so many more people out there that have been doing art very seriously that have never gotten all of these benefits. And I think one thing that could be really dangerous is never having anyone that's doing it as seriously as you at the same timeline as you, because you really need those crucial close peers to like push you through all of the horrible hurdles that you're going to get you and to give you inspiration. I just can't imagine how hard it would be to do that all on your own. Or honestly, even kind of worse is if you have friends that are like way behind you or way under your skill level where you're kind of treating them like peers and you're like, yeah, we're doing this thing together, right? And they're just constantly slacking off and they aren't taking this artist career as seriously as you are. I think that that's a really difficult position to be in. And so if you don't have these peers that are pushing you and helping you, that's the number one thing I would strongly recommend to discover and try to get for yourself. One of my close comedy peers told me once, if you're the smartest person in the room, get out of the room. And I think about that all the time because there's all these different progressions that you're going through. And it's really easy to be kind of comfortable and warm or like people that are your friends, but they're just not hustling as hard as you, which they should still be your friends. And they're definitely still your peers. But if that's all you have, if you don't know any single person that's working as hard as you, that's just going to be really hard to keep yourself going. So, okay, if I've sold you on the idea of having a community, but you're like, I don't know how to get one, depending on where you're at, both financially and in your journey, the easiest way is going to be classes, right? This is going to dump you into a group of a lot of people who are literally trying to do the exact same thing at the exact same level that you are. Obviously, these also cost money, so it's not an option for everybody. But if you're doing some kind of art where you can take a class, especially in person, but also online, and you can swing the money and you haven't, definitely start with that. It's going to be a great place. Plus, especially if you stick with it, then eventually that teacher is going to be a peer that you'll have as a contact. And overall, online is definitely better than nothing. So definitely search out your online community of artists if you can. But I would say that the real kind of magic is in these kind of like water cooler moments almost where there's not too much else going on. I'd encourage you to find an artist community online that would actually meet over video. If you can do an accountability group or you're going to give each other notes on current things that you're working on, that's perfect. That's almost going to get you like everything that in person was going to have, because you need those like kind of lulls where you're asking questions or just shooting the shit or just complaining and having someone really hear your particular artist vent. You really need those casual moments. That's the ultimate goal. And this last point will really vary depending on what you're doing, you know, why, how long you're doing it, etc. But if you're really serious about this being like your entire life's thing, I would really consider moving to a location where that's going to be easier to facilitate. For a lot of art forms, you just have to live in LA. This is kind of changing with online, but I don't know, there's still a lot of truth to like where you are has a big impact on what's happening, especially just those casual connections. So if this is an option for you, if it's something you're thinking about it, like consider moving to the town where like your art gets done. Or even if you're not going to move, definitely regularly visit. You want to at least have boots on the ground enough to kind of know the scene and know what's happening. And I can imagine a lot of art forms that really don't have a centralized location. Like I think that visual art is a great example of this. But again, depending on how seriously you're going to take it, if you like living in big cities and if this really is your entire kind of life's thing, like get to a place that does have big visual art shows. Get within driving distance so you can kind of take part in these events and really just build your community that way. So yeah, I hope you found this video useful. Let me know if you've found an artist community, if you are looking for one, if you're having trouble finding one. I can really imagine a lot of art forms being very hard to kind of collect this for. And I think if you're in one of those art forms where it doesn't really naturally form around communities and it's difficult to get one, that you would like even benefit more than the rest of them if you were able to get that one, because you'd be getting all these extra perks that like the other artists in your field weren't getting. I just can't emphasize enough how much my personal artist friends have changed my life. Like they're seriously my best friends I'll probably ever have. Like they're so positive and hopeful and uplifting, and they also help me creatively. I mean, we don't talk about notes, but like these are the people that can give you notes and literally make your art better and improve and just make you a better person overall. So can't recommend this enough. Definitely find your artist community if you haven't, or get started on that process, and good luck. Bye.